Hello, Suidlanders, how are you? We hope that you are very, very well. I want to begin this video by emphasizing categorically and, emphasizing emphatically that I am hopelessly unqualified to speak with authority on the US banking crisis at present. As you know, we've made a number of videos on this and related subjects going back to 2018. And in every video that we've produced, I have done extensive, or for every video, I've done extensive research, and the facts and figures and data and statistics and so on are really regurgitations of other people's knowledge. And I endeavor to research among the very best people, the people with the best proven track records in their fields. And we're going to do that once again today. I am not going to pretend that I, Simon Roche, or that we, Suidlanders, are brilliant in this field. However, I will make the following claim. If you are an assiduous follower of the work that I do, in other words, if you are on one of the groups that I run, WhatsApp groups, and you're one of those people who reads everything and consumes everything, and if you are one of those people who has watched every video that I've made in the past 6 years, or at least those on this subject, then you will know that we have very, very, very seldom been at all even slightly wrong. And as Mr. Miller says, I suppose it's wrong of me to say that, you know, we do good research, we try hard, we spend many hours a day. Those of you on my groups know that I work not every day, but as an average, I would say from 5 in the morning to 6 at night. And very often it's from 3:30 in the morning to 8 and 9 at night. Continually researching this subject. Oh, the camera just lost focus. I do stop in between and watch chess, maybe play a game of chess, or I'll watch, in the middle of the working day, I'll spend an hour or two watching a fiction. I like fiction that is mentally not just stimulating but challenging. For instance, crime dramas and non-fiction as well. Crime dramas that are very elaborate and that really engage you, because I think that's it's beneficial. My point being that it would be a lie to say that I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. But it would not be a lie to say that we put extraordinary time into getting these facts right. And it was important to me, I know it's taken me 4 minutes to say this now, but it was important for me to really emphasize that. Because I'm going to go out on a limb ever so slightly. I'm going to speculate slightly in this video. Will or shall the US banking crisis, banking crisis, it's banks that are failing, hit South Africa? As far as I'm concerned, yes, yes, and yes. Now, it may happen that a friend of mine who is very, 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 very famous in that field, and you've probably seen them on television on a number of occasions, representing one of the big four banks, will make a statement tomorrow absolutely contradicting me. And they're well within their right. don't talk very much, but we were once very good friends, and when we bump into one another, if we bump into one another ever again, I'm sure that it will be as friendly as ever, although they might give me a little bit of a hard time. Nevertheless, I say to you that if my friend appears on television tomorrow saying or implying, they might not be explicit about my name or Saitlanders, that everything in this video is absolute rubbish, I'm telling you that they are wrong. But it's speculative. I'm not actually qualified. I don't actually have a degree, an honors, and a master's in economics and finance. I haven't actually spent 30 years at a top financial institution since leaving university. However, if we, you and I alike, have learned one thing over the past 6 years, it's that the crisis in banking and global finance is an actual thing. I remind you of, I believe it was Tuesday, the 16th of November 2019, when the overnight interbank repurchase agreement system failed because United States banks went from charging one another about 1.65% for overnight transactions to balance their books to, if I remember correctly, 9.65%, which made it prohibitive for them to do business with one another. They did it because they lost faith in one another's ability to pay one another back. It was that bad. And so the US, the Fed and the Treasury stepped in to provide $53 billion a night. Initially, it went all the way up, 53 billion initially. It was 53 the first night, 74 the second, and by the Friday night, it was in the 70s, I think, and a week later or 2 weeks later, it reached a high of $105 billion a night. That anecdote alone is enough to tell you that the US banking system is utterly broken. I'm sorry to Hector, to be overly forceful in my words. But I cannot emphasize adequately that it's utterly broken when the government has to toss in 105 billion a night because let's say farmers don't trust Pick n Pay enough to give them pineapples. So the government says, all right, we'll pay for the pineapples and then we'll get the money back from them. We'll assume the risk. It's very severe. Now, we're seeing banks fail because they borrowed a lot of money when interest rates were very low, roughly zero, between 0 and 1%. And now that they've gone up to, I think they're 4.85% at the moment, I think. That increase, that's call it 1,000% increase, because in many cases people were borrowing at 0.1% or 0 or minus 1% in certain bonds, which is not exactly the same thing, but now with such a dramatic increase, it's 1,000%. It's the percentage that counts, not the absolute numbers. 4.85 is not what counts. It's the multiple that 4.85 is of what banks have been charged to borrow money for the past whatever period of time. It is such a dramatic increase that the banks can't pay back. And what they've been doing is selling off their own bonds. Some of these banks. It's not a universally true thing, but in the case of Silicon Valley Bank, for instance, in order to, when people came knocking for their money, they would sell their bonds to pay these depositors. So let's say, for instance, you were a tech company in Silicon Valley, and you had deposited money, big money. You got venture capitalists and others to give you $1 billion to start up a business. You put that money in Silicon Valley Bank, and you want to withdraw 100 million because you're at an important stage of the project. The bank didn't have that 100 million. So they'd sell bonds that they were holding, US Treasury bonds. And they were selling them at losses. So the more they traded, the more they lost. So their own trading was harmful to them. And that's something you can't really avoid. I mean, if you're in the business of cutting lawn, you must cut lawn. Otherwise, what are you going to do? Sit at home. Starve. But if you're cutting lawn at a loss and you feel, well, I don't have any choice because in order to draw a salary as a bank director or whatever, I'm kind of conflating the two examples. I can't not go to work if I want a salary. I can't not do the function of my job. I've got to keep doing this. I've got to keep committing suicide or suiciding, assisting the business to commit suicide. And as this video now reaches like 13 minutes, I want to kind of really cut to the chase. This problem, I would suggest to you, speculatively, may not be a problem within South African banks, this particular problem. And it may not particularly be that South African banks have any problems or severe problems. So I'm not suggesting that Nedbank, I don't know, I've got no idea, I don't have a clue, that Nedbank is trading at a loss, or that Nedbank has got dodgy bonds on its balance sheets, or that whoever, ABSA, Standard, FNB, that they're in trouble. But I will suggest to you that as these problems become more severe in Europe and the USA, so it is that there will be knock-on effects into South Africa. As you know, I did a video the other day, I think about a week and a half ago, or I might have covered it in the Statelanders Week in Review. I don't remember. South Africa has, in recent months, lost 100 billion rand in direct foreign investment through foreign investors taking money out of the country because they don't want it to be in South Africa anymore. So it's not that they're taking profits or anything like that. It's them saying, I don't have faith in the South African market as a place of safety and security or profitability for my money. And there are many factors, Eskom, whatever. And to my mind, it is indisputable that a similar process will be followed when there are problems at home. So regardless of Eskom, regardless of unemployment, regardless of our shambolic government, regardless of anything and everything, if only because foreign investors are in difficult circumstances at home, they will pull their money out from the four corners of the globe to protect themselves against whatever problems they may have at home. So, I'm not preaching immediate doom and gloom. I'm not saying that the day after tomorrow this thing is going to go to hell in a handbasket. I am saying that I cannot see how, if these events continue, and if related events continue, our banks will not feel severe repercussive pain. We're a small, poor market. As you know from other videos that I've made in recent years, particularly videos based upon the work of Magnus Haystack, South African pension funds and others have not made money for years and years and years. Particularly when you factor inflation. If you factor inflation into this equation, then it's quite severe how little money they have made and how great losses they have made. Not necessarily all of them equally, but all of them somewhat, apart from an exception perhaps. There may be one here or there. And my point being that the South African financial environment is perhaps stable, it is perhaps healthy, but it's not vigorous. It's not, it may be like you hear of these Formula One crashes and they report he's in a stable condition. I remember, I don't know what age I was, maybe 10 or 11 when I first heard that expression. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. The guy's just driven into a wall at 360 kilometers an hour and you say, oh, he's stable. It just seems like such an unsuitable word, no matter how you slice it. Even if you say, yeah, but we can prove with the graphs and the medical, he's not getting worse, he's not getting better, so it's definitively stable. Yeah, you win the semantic argument, Professor. You do. But I still don't think it's a suitable word, no matter how right you are in semantic terms. And similarly, I would say that even if we grant that word stable to the South African financial environment, I would still insist to you that the evidence is that it's not in rude health. It's not so strong that a little bit of flu means nothing. I still went to work. Oh, it's only a head cold. I can hardly feel it. It's just a cough. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I think that the South African financial environment is such that if we continue to be depleted of 100 billion rand of liquidity, and in this case wealth is health, every few months, and there are big international events, so providing that the things that are occurring now don't stop, that they continue, that are detrimental to global finance, and South African banks are going to be harmed by it. What's the final point? The final point is not that you should take all of your money out of the bank. I don't know. I don't know enough to say something as wild as that. Maybe you should. Maybe they're all on the verge of folding week after next. But I don't know that. I haven't a clue. Hopelessly unqualified. But I would say, as a layman, that if you have big bucks, you should think, if you have big bucks and it's in the bank, you should think very, very carefully about the degree of exposure that any financial ecosystem anywhere in the world, in this case South Africa, has to far bigger, far more powerful financial ecosystems elsewhere in the world. If I had 100 million rand in the bank, I would be day and night scheming of ways for it not to be in the bank. That's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching this video. Goodbye and God bless all of you. Cheerio.